Right. I think we are live here, so I'm gonna jump into it. Thank you everyone for joining the session today. I'm excited to get into our topic. My name is Greg Hanley. I'm a sales leader at Coast. I've been with Coast for 4 years, where I've had the opportunity to work with hundreds of contractors and trades businesses of various sizes and stages across the country. A little bit more on Coast specifically. Coast is a fuel card and expense management software designed specifically for contractors. We work with thousands of companies in the trades to better manage their fuel and various business related expenses. So today we are going to be talking about smarter fleet management for growing businesses in the trades. What we found through various conversations with our customers is as trades businesses begin to grow, inevitably so does the fleet. You want to service more customers. In order to do that, you need to hire more technicians, more electricians, and you have to be able to give them a vehicle so they can get to where they need to go to service those customers. And with that comes a growing fleet. And with a growing fleet comes some more challenges that maybe some companies and folks on this call might not be used to dealing with. Those challenges that come to mind are number one, controlling expenses. That becomes more challenging. Day-to-day visibility into where your vehicles are, where your people are on the road becomes more and more important. On the road incidents or accidents can happen that can be out of your control and open up the business right to some liability that you really need to get your arms around. Ops teams get stretched thin, and in general, it can be really hard to scale some of the previous processes you had for a smaller fleet. So, in short, what works for 10 vehicles doesn't always work for 50, 100 vehicles, etc. And in this session, we're really going to dive into how a particular customer of ours and a partner of CertainPath, Milestone, tackled those challenges with the right partners, the right tools, and the right processes. So I'm really excited to be joined by a Coast customer, Tim Weisser. Tim and I have had the opportunity to work together for a couple of years now. We've implemented various solutions within the fleet over at Milestone. Tim is the fleet operations manager over at Milestone Electric, that's based out of Dallas, Texas. And it's particularly exciting to have Tim because he's been on a really, interesting and exciting journey at Milestone, which he saw, the fleet scale to something much smaller to something to where it is as much larger today, and we'll get into those numbers here as we go on. And we're going to be talking about the journey that Tim went on. So, Tim, I'll pass it to you just to do more of an introduction on yourself, and then we can get into more of the conversation here.
Okay, sounds great. Like Greg mentioned, I work for Milestone. I've been there actually 10 years this past June. I first started actually as an apprentice electrician, and then after about 6 months, I learned that I am better at warehouse operations type work. So I transferred into the warehouse. I started working in the purchasing side at first, and then eventually found my way over on the fleet side. And I've slowly, helped in different roles, but eventually got up to where I'm at now. And yeah.
It's awesome. So, Tim, can you maybe go into some more detail maybe about, we'll start with Milestone, right? Like, what do you guys look like right now in terms of size, what your fleet looks like, types of, services that you have in the business, et cetera?
Yeah. So we are about 330 trucks, and we service, in the sense of home service, we do electrical, HVAC, plumbing, and so on.
Gotcha. In your current role as fleet operations manager, what goes into that in a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I manage the team that handles all of our software, all of our fuel cards, all of our GPS situations, anything to do with registration, inspections on the vehicles. Yeah, anything to do with a vehicle to make sure it can, run and work for our technicians that are in the field.
Excellent. I think like the nature of the conversation is we're gonna really talk about your early days at Milestone and what fleet management kind of looked like then, and then kind of go through the journey to where we're at now, where you're at a few hundred plus vehicles with great processes and software in place. But it wasn't always like that, right? So
Right.
I think we want to take a step back, right, and think about the earlier days when you joined Milestone as either an apprentice, or you can talk about when you really started to take over the fleet, and highlight some of the challenges there. But I guess before we get into that, like when you first got into fleet, what did the operations team look like? How many personnel did you have that were focused on that?
Yeah. At the time, we had, I think, one fleet manager and one or two technicians, the guys that were working on the trucks. At that time, really, we didn't have anybody that was an official mechanic, so we were limited on what we could do in-house. We would do some oil changes here or there, but most of our work was sent out of shop.
Gotcha. Okay. And what were some of I would say the initial challenges, right, that you faced in day-to-day management when you really took over that fleet?
Yeah. At that time, everything was paper.
Mm-hmm.
So all of anything we did in the shop on the trucks was based on we filled out a paper work order. Everything to do with invoicing or anything we had at the shops, any parts we ordered, everything was just, we had a binder for every truck, and so we had shelves and shelves of all these binders, and that really limited on how fast we could find out information. We'd have to go dig through this binder to find maybe an old invoice. If we ever transferred one of our trucks to another shop, because we had 2 or 3 shops at that point, we're having to send the binder with the truck to make sure that side knows what to do. It was just limiting on what we knew. It was, the speed of what we could do. It was just very slow.
Okay. And at that time, where you had this binder process, what would you say the size of the fleet was at that point?
Probably 120, maybe
Okay.
130.
Okay. At what point would you say in like total vehicle count or just general fleet size would you say the pain became kind of so acute where you couldn't operate like this anymore? At what point do you think that was?
I'm not sure. I just know that we continue. Well, obviously, we were always trying to be more efficient. That was the goal from the time I started, and we continue to bring more people on the team. I can't pinpoint an actual time that we're like, okay, we got to make a change. It was just little things piled on and on and on. We'd have issues here or there with the fuel cards that we were using at the time, or we'd have issues with the GPS, because we did have GPS at the time, but it was faulty and it was never, so we just slowly had to figure out these things that we had to make more efficient, make better.
Gotcha. Okay. So I think you mentioned a couple of them just now, but would be great to reiterate it. In those days, how would you categorize like the burning platforms, right, or the places where you really needed to solve problems for as you think about day-to-day management of the fleet?
Yeah, like I mentioned, fuel purchasing, that was a huge thing. We at the time we had a limited fuel card that could only work at certain gas stations. We actually had people that would have to go out of their way to find a specific gas station, be able to use their fuel or to be able to purchase fuel. Like I mentioned, GPS. At that time, we didn't actually have dash cameras. Now we do with our current solution, but we only had GPSs, and it was very limited on the accuracy of the GPS. And then I would say the last thing was probably, like I mentioned, our fleet. maintenance or fleet management, we were limited back then. Even the things that we were trying to do in-house, it was hard to track everything, from purchasing the parts that we put in the shop to doing the actual work on the vehicles. We didn't have a good system that was able to track all that.
Okay. That's helpful, and it gives us a few key points to hit on as we talk about how you started to really get your arms around kind of taking control of these operations. So let's transition a little bit and start to talk about how you started to solve some of these problems. So it sounded like the biggest areas for you guys to tackle were, number one, fuel purchasing, right? Being able to give your team an easy, reliable way to purchase fuel when they're out on a job. And then also on the back end, right, have the visibility and the control that you need to make sure that people were only doing exactly what they should be doing with these cards. So that's 100%. One.
Yep.
Two is going to be a more reliable telematics GPS system, right, that gave you visibility into where these vehicles were at any given time, and various other data, which we'll talk about. And then finally is just a more reliable fleet management and maintenance platform, so you can move away from the pen and paper binder system that you outlined and move towards a system of record that gave you easy access to data and a dashboard that you can use on a reliably consistent basis. So let's dive into each of them. So you ultimately decided to move away from the previous fuel card provider you were working with and onto the Coast solution. Prior to implementing Coast, what did the process look like for your team members to purchase fuel? You mentioned they could only go to one particular place, or was it one brand? Just talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So at the time, we had QT cards. Actually, it was powered through WEX, and we were only able to go to QT. And in the Dallas area, there's a good amount of QT gas stations, but a lot of them don't have diesel. And about 40% of our fuel, 40% of our fleet is diesel. So these guys were having to go way out of their way to find a gas station that would actually work. Even the guys that didn't have diesel, they're still having to find a QT versus stop along their route and go straight home. Instead, they're having to go maybe spend 20 minutes, 30 minutes going somewhere else, or miles and miles down the road to find a QT gas station. Now, and also at that time, they actually had to use a fuel pin and type in their fuel pin. And what would happen, we found a few times where people were writing their fuel pin on the back of their card. Obviously not a great idea, but what would happen is then that fuel card might get lost, and somebody could get steal fuel. We had some people that did that. And also, there was no way to know at that time, is our vehicle actually there? Now with Coast, it's obviously connected with Samsara, and we're able to in real time stop the transaction from happening because we know the vehicle's there, which is huge.
Gotcha. So it sounds like you were able to kill a couple of birds with one stone, right? Which was to, number one, give your guys a solution to be able to purchase fuel wherever was convenient for them, along their day-to-day. This way they weren't, driving miles away to find a QT. Give them the ability to purchase diesel, and then also give you the peace of mind to know that, hey, the only way my technicians, my users in the field can use these cards is exactly the way I intend them to use it, which is just to fill up a company-owned vehicle that's present at the time of the transaction, right?
Yeah.
That's I'm happy to hear we were able to solve some of those challenges for you.
100%.
Yeah. I guess thinking about maybe like some data that maybe you pull from Coast on a regular basis. What was the difference in being, for like your experience as an administrator, being able to get the information you need on your team's fuel purchasing versus where it was before?
Yeah, the platform that we were using before was dated. It was hard to, you know, sort through, create these different reports that we needed. Now, obviously, with Coast, it's a whole lot quicker. It's a whole lot user friendly. We're able to hop on there and download the report. We're actually able to see a lot more data. We're actually able to see. Currently, we're able to track if this vehicle was a diesel or is a diesel truck, and somehow they didn't get diesel. We're alerted of that in real time, which is huge. Obviously we can fix a lot of issues if someone's putting the wrong fuel in their vehicle. The sooner we figure that out.
It's great. And for I guess like thinking of about the switch, just to quantify it for folks that are out there that are thinking about switching platforms. Some metrics that we have here, right, that we worked together with Tim was an annual savings of about $130,000 on fuel. That's due to a combination of things. Number one is being able to eliminate any sort of fraud or misuse by employees in the field. Better rebates, right, that you've actually been able to capture by going to multiple kind of different partners, right, not just being able to go to QT, and then also an efficiency in payroll, right, not needing to pay people more for driving places they don't need to be driving, so you've gained some efficiency there as well.
Yeah.
Also,
a lot of gas stations are not all, but a lot of gas stations are cheaper.
Yep.
And they're not having to go to the higher gas station.
Yep. Great call out. So, a combination of things there that have, we're pleased to say have really been able to help you kind of take control of your, your fleet and fuel purchasing and, other expenses that might be happening out in the field today with Coast. So, that's platform number one. Platform number two, which was GPS and telematics, right? You mentioned that you're working with an integrated partner of ours, which is Samsara. But before making the switch to Samsara, can you talk a little bit about some of the things you were experiencing, with the previous provider, maybe what you felt like it left you susceptible to and made it a platform that you wanted to solve for right away?
Yeah. Well, for one, Samsara is not just GPS. Obviously, it's also dash camera. That's a big reason why we went to Samsara. Thankfully, also the telematics GPS side of it is exceptional as well. But the big reason why we started searching for a dash camera solution was, it's funny. We actually had, it's not funny. We had a person driving on the highway, and they were just staring at their phone. One of our company, our technicians, just reading something, and one of the higher up of our company just happened to pass them by and see them and said, we got to figure out that we got to fix that solution, or figure out a solution for that. And so we started hunting for dash cameras. We looked at a lot of different options. We tested a bunch, and we came to the conclusion that Samsara was the best. And again, thankfully, the GPS side of it, the telematics side of it is exceptional as well, and we're able to have better tracking of our vehicles across the board.
It's great. Yeah, it sounds like it gives you and the leadership team over at Milestone some peace of mind, right? That you guys have visibility into what's going on, with these vans, really at any point, right? I guess the last piece, Tim, is kind of moving away from the binders, right, and the manual logging of activity, what's going on with these vehicles. Talk to me a little bit about that. How did you migrate from the pen and paper system, and what did you implement to have more of a system of record that's easily accessible and reliable?
Yeah. So we again, obviously we checked a lot of different software options, tested things, and we tested another software that it was more of a shop management software versus a fleet management software. And so we were having to, the way that a lot of people would use the term, we were trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. We were trying to make it work, but we weren't able to tweak all these things to make it work. So we finally found Fleetio, which is literally a fleet management software. So we're able to do everything that has to do with our fleet, our vehicles in-house. We're able to see all the data, any invoices actually from a lot of our shops that we thankfully we're able to limit how much we have to do outside. We're able to do a lot more in-house now, but when we do have to send a vehicle out, they're actually connected, so the invoice transmits straight to Fleetio, and so there's no manually having to type it in or keep track of that invoice. It's already there. We're already seeing what was done, and everything. It's huge.
Got it. Yeah, you guys have implemented as a different Coast customer calls it the Holy Trinity, right? And that's
Right.
Coast, Samsara, and Fleetio. And one of the the best things about working with this group of software to manage your fleet is that they all speak to each other. So not only are they all best in class systems, right? But they're all integrated so that your fuel purchase data gets passed into Fleetio. So at any given time, you can see total cost of ownership on a vehicle, right?
Yep.
And Coast integrates with Samsara, so at any given time, we know where your vehicles are. We know where your users are making transactions, so we can always make sure that a Milestone vehicle is actually present at the gas station where one of your users is making a purchase, right? So having all of these systems speaks to each other is another added benefit there. So, all right, great. Thanks for running through those, those platforms, right, that you tackled. I guess I want to transition a little bit and talk a little bit about, how did you go about, finding these partners, right? Was this something that you actively did, where you approached? Just give us a high level into what your process looked like.
Yeah, we did some searching. We asked some different. We actually asked a few of our other partner companies what they offered. We did some Google searches. We found lots of different options, and then for each of these softwares, we spent probably 3 to 6 months, checking out multiple different companies. We would say, hey, we need at least 30 to 60 days, try this out, see if it works. And then if it didn't, move on, find another option. And we really wanted to nail down something that worked perfectly for us, versus signing up for something that maybe looks pretty, but it didn't actually work.
Got it. And then, after you've, you ultimately made these decisions, right? Implementation is also really critical, right? A few hundred vehicles, hundreds of technicians, right? They all have to be trained and taught how to use these systems, even if they are really simple and easy to use, right? There can be a change in process.
Sure.
How do you guys manage that over at Milestone, and what's some advice you would give maybe to some of your peers on the call?
Yeah, so a big thing that was a huge thing that a lot of people didn't like was when we moved to obviously the dash cameras. A lot of people thought their privacy was being breached. We had to assure them we're not listening to them. The audio is not there; it's just video, and really we're just tracking to see if something bad happens. We're trying to protect them, in a sense, for an insurance claims. We've actually had examples of people that backed into one of our vehicles, and we caught it on camera, and we're able to now say, no, the driver wasn't at fault. So, a lot of it was retraining our technicians in the field to say, hey, this is a good thing for you. This is a protection for you. That's specifically for Samsara, obviously.
Yeah.
The fuel cards, also, it was one of those things where people don't like change. But I think after a couple weeks of us, retraining these guys and, having lots of phone conversations, hey, this is what you got to do. It became really easy. It was a lot easier than the previous, and people love it now. They at first, again, change is hard, but
Sure.
After a couple weeks, it wasn't too bad.
That's great. So I guess before we transition here, I think we're gonna open up to the audience for some Q&A. I guess Tim, I guess any parting thoughts as you reflect on your journey from kind of where you started versus where you guys are at now? Really anything, I guess, that you would want to share with the group that we haven't touched on so far today?
Yeah, I mean, I guess find a software. If it's not Fleetio, we picked Fleetio. Obviously, we thought it worked best for us. But if it's not Fleetio, find another software, something that can track all of your data, all of your information about your fleet in one place. Like you said earlier, it integrates with all of these other platforms, including Coast, Samsara, and find something that will be able to have all your information in one place versus having to try to hunt and find that information. It's huge.
Great. So I think we're gonna open it up to Q&A now. If we have some questions from the group, please go ahead and feel free to share. It looks like we have a couple questions that have been typed out. So Tim, I'll read those and we can answer them together. But I think it'll mostly be for you.
Okay.
Ben Borsian asked, with Fleetio, are you not adding maintenance logs to Samsara?
No, we're not. Okay. All of the maintenance logs is in Fleetio. We're able to get that data, the different codes. If there's a code on a vehicle that something's wrong with it, it transfers straight over to Fleetio.
Cool. Ben, feel free to ask a follow-up if you need. In the meantime, we'll go to Doug Eckert. Doug asks, at 120 vehicles, do you remember what your monthly repair budget was?
I really don't. I had less to do with that at that time.
Okay. What is it now?
I'm sure I could get it for you. Monthly repair cost?
Yeah.
It varies. I mean, like I said, we do most of our work in-house now. Almost everything, other than very large jobs on our trucks. We actually do our state inspections in-house. We do our tires in-house. So it shifts each year, but I'm not sure.
Okay. I will hang on for one more minute here before we transit. Okay, we got another one. James Baker. How many different softwares was this able to replace?
Fleetio? Specifically, I'm assuming? Maybe?
We might need some clarification there.
Yeah.
Let's give him a second to clarify. There's a couple more questions that we can answer in the meantime. So, another one specifically on Coast. How is the transition switching your fuel card program to Coast from your WEX program?
Super easy. Yeah, I mean, it really wasn't difficult at all. I mean, we were able to. I mean, that's the answer. It was real easy. It was, there's been other things that we've done in the past that were harder and more time consuming, but this was quick and easy.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I would just add, obviously, I may be a little bit biased, but our customers tell us quite frequently the switch is easy, right? We like to think that the majority of the work that is involved in implementation is handled by us, and we get it to a point where the only thing you need to do is take cards away and put Coast cards in, and the majority of the work, right, is going to be done by our team and through the various integrations that we set up for you. So, it certainly can be an easy switch. I'm not going to be able to pronounce this name, so forgive me. Abdul Mohsen. His question was, which Coast feature ended up being most used or most valuable day to day by your drivers or managers? And maybe you can talk about what's been most valuable to you as well. I can also hit on on some other customers, what they tell us.
Yeah. I mean, like I mentioned before, the fact that we're not having to, well, the fact that we know the vehicle is there is game changer.
Yep.
Um, the fact that that these guys aren't having to, and I don't think I mentioned earlier, they're not having to type in the odometer. All they got to do is, make sure the card is active, and then go slide it, and they're good to go. They don't have to do all these other things like before, where they'd have to manually type in the odometer, mileage, all that. But because Samsara is connected to it, we're getting that in real time already.
Yep. So, Abdul Motion, what Tim is referencing specifically there is, taking away a lot of like the manual burden that may have been on technicians before, right? So they used to have to remember a pin, they have to enter it into, the gas pump, they would have to enter an odometer reading in, right? And maybe those weren't the most accurate that were provided. When we connect with your telematics system, whether it be Samsara or another one that you might be using, we can automate away a lot of those steps, right? We'll take the accurate odometer reading, as Tim mentioned, directly off the Samsara device, assign it to the fuel transaction so that you're always going to know, right, who made the purchase, what vehicle it was for, ensuring the vehicle is actually present where the transaction takes place, and then also confirming that the odometer reading is correct, and then passing that information into whichever system of record is that you choose, whether it be Samsara or your telematics provider or Fleetio or your fleet maintenance provider. And then for you, Tim, anything to highlight in terms of most useful feature?
I mean, I really like I mentioned earlier, I like the reporting side of it. I'm able to pull the data that I need quick and easy. A big thing for us is we limit premium fuel. We don't want our guys going out there and just, we do so much for our vehicles in-house, adding all these additives and things like that. We don't need to get premium fuel. So we're able to save money there. So the reporting side is real easy to find out that information.
That's great. Last thing I would plug, right, in terms of, some of the biggest value adds, that I hear from, people in Tim's role as well is the ability to control for not only fuel, but other types of spend as well, right? A number of our customers, a lot of our customers take advantage of Coast not only for fuel, but they want to enable and control, right, how their technicians may be able to get maintenance for the vehicle, right? Or maybe they need to go to Home Depot and buy certain parts or pieces of equipment. And we've got really great expense management software to give you the control as an administrator, but also make it really easy for your employee as well, so that there's control, data collection, and all the visibility that you're going to need. So in terms of questions, I think that is it from the Q&A. I am going to transition now to just kind of to conclude our webinar here. So, want to really kind of recap, the conversation that we had. And I think, want to highlight the fact that, Tim was able to overcome a lot of the common challenges that growing fleets face by selecting the right partners and the right tools to get the jobs done, right? So whether it be Coast, right, for their fleet and fuel purchasing, or Samsara and Fleetio to give them, the data, the control, and the visibility that they need, right? Choosing the right partners and the right software was really critical in helping Tim and the Milestone team get their arms around, their growing fleet, which is, up over 350 vehicles at this point. And I guess, well, Tim, I'll pass you any parting thoughts before we conclude here.
Just happy that we found Coast. It's been a game changer.
Good man. We're happy we found you guys as well. It's been a great partnership. Last reminder here for everybody who joined. Thank you again for joining. I do want to remind you all that you do get extra incentives and rewards as being a CertainPath member. So there's an added bonus. You'll get double rebates and extra rewards when you sign up with Coast. And CertainPath members can save about 10% per month on average on their fuel bill when switching to Coast. And we'd be happy to talk to you about that at any time. So should you be interested in learning more, please reach out to your rebate coach with CertainPath, or visit coastpay.com/CertainPath. And that will conclude our time today. So again, thank you all for joining. Tim, really appreciate it. This is a lot of fun. And I hope everybody has a great rest of the day. Take care.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye.